we are back. How's it going, guys? Did you guys have a good night's sleep? Yes? No? Maybe? So? It is what it is, whatever. Alright, so this is part 3. Where we left off is I checked out my dorms and the ghosts were real. Let's do this shit.
My name is Christian. This happened 3 years ago, and I was living in a dormitory with my best friend, Miko. I was a civil engineering student at that time, and Miko was a
said he a scholar out here.
The dormitory where we were staying had 9 rooms overall. Our room was quite small, but enough space for 2 people. The kitchen was at the opposite end of the entrance door, and we had no fire exit. The restroom was just at the left side of the kitchen, and the bed, that we even shared together, was on the right side. And there was a table in the middle where we used to eat, or make it as a study table. Our dormitory had rumors about ghosts in there, but we hadn't encountered any in our 2 years staying.
Yeah, that boy got hot. His face expression like, what do you mean you don't believe in ghosts?
We decided to put a hot cup of coffee in the sink. I know that was such a stupid thing, but we were curious about it. If this became empty when we came back from the school, then this is a haunted dormitory, I told him. Then we left for school. And soon I forgot about the coffee
Perfect
thing
setting
because
too,
I was
bruh.
quite busy with the calculus examination.
I know how to time these things.
After that, when I came back to the dorm, around 7 p.m., I saw Miko was sleeping in his bed. It was quite weird, since usually when I come back to the room, he was either playing games or cooking in the kitchen. But it didn't bother me, since it was a midterm season, and I thought that he might just be exhausted.
Out there, bro.
Suddenly, I remembered the mug of coffee that we put in the sink earlier in the morning. I put my bag on the table and headed straight to the sink. I saw the coffee was still full, so I said, "Told you, there's no ghost." So I poured out the hot coffee and washed the cup. Right after I washed the cup, my phone inside my pocket vibrated. Someone was calling me. I looked at the phone, and it was Miko. I stared at the bed where Miko was still lying and sleeping. I shouted, "Hey man, why are you calling me?" But he didn't respond. So I thought inside my head, did he leave his phone at school? I answered the call. "Hello?" To my shock and disbelief, it was Miko. It was his voice, and he said, "Dude, just eat without me if you're already hungry. I'm still at the mall buying our food supply for next week." I was frozen. I was so confused and terrified at the time.
Well, you
until
better
I
check
got
if
the
that
courage
Miko
to
or
say,
not.
"Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, sorry, but I'm almost done at the counter. I'm just gonna drive home now if you can wait. Let's eat together. Bye," and hung up. I was there standing still in the kitchen and couldn't move while still looking at the man in the bed. Then I realized the cup of coffee. We left it in the morning. When I went to the dorm, it was not empty as we expected, but it was still hot. It should have cooled down. I looked back at the sink for 1 second, and to my terror, when I looked again at the bed, he was no longer there. I screamed, ran out of the room, and waited for my best friend. When Miko was finally home after 40 minutes, I told him what happened and saw his confused, scared reaction.
Oh, shit, man.
After that night, we decided to transfer to another dormitory, and fortunately, nothing happened anymore in the new place. But I will never forget this memory, forever.
Whoa. Duh, what happened to Miko, bruh?
What a pleasant way to begin my 3 a.m. shift at Mercy Hospital. The first thing I did as I sat down was cut my finger. It was a paper cut. And despite working at one of the largest hospitals in the state, I couldn't find a single band-aid laying around. I sucked on my index finger like a vampire while I scrambled my desk for that band-aid. I found one. Purple. I'm a hospital receptionist, and all that means is I greet visitors and make
Big
appointments
fancy
and
name
look
just for
nice.
that.
Well, as nice as a 30-year-old man who hasn't slept in hours can look. That night, as we call it, it was just me and a few nurses on the floor. Other than that, it was ghost quiet, except for the heavy rain. I sat back on the cheap recliner chair all receptionists get the honour of using. While adjusting my band-aid, I listened to the television mounted on the corner of the ceiling as it broadcasted a seemingly important message.
Authorities say the woman was last seen on Cedar Avenue.
I looked up to see if the television was showing any images of this strange woman. None. It was yet another crazy person with no name and no face who we were supposed to look out for. Not creepy at all.
Authorities also say the woman was reportedly walking around and asking people very, very bizarre questions.
I focused back on my desk and continued working, but I still listened as the news anchor went on and on. She continued.
The following statement was issued by an unidentified government official.
Listen carefully, folks. Whatever she asks you, answer no. Do not, under any circumstances, answer yes.
Officials won't comment further as to why,
I bet
citing
homeboy
security
ain't even
clearance.
listen.
These are asking that you immediately call 911 if you deem anyone suspicious.
I thought that part of the coverage was quite odd, but I wasn't sure anything could scare me anymore. Working here at the hospital, I thought I had seen it all. At the flash of the ruby red ambulance lights, I've seen people come in with severed arms, legs, fingers, people who somehow managed to scoop out their eyes, failed suicide attempts, and much more.
Salute to y'all
You get
who
used to it.
ever
My
worked
head was
over
practically sunk into my desk as I filled out paperwork. That's when I heard something very subtle, initially. I heard it coming from the front doors, the entrance. The automatic doors opened and closed, slamming against each other, and sounding an obnoxiously
that's
loud
Miko.
thud each time. The very dim lighting I had surrounding my desk flickered incessantly. Hello? I called out, seated behind the safety of my desk. Only the whistling wind responded. Hello? I called out again. I felt obligated to check if someone was there, especially since it might have been someone who was injured and needed our attention. I reluctantly picked myself up from my chair and walked over to inspect. I nearly slipped and cracked my head open as the entrance floor was almost flooded with
Stupid.
rain. I noticed footsteps, wet shoe marks that seemed to come inside the hospital and then back out. I stood near the doors, poking my head outside, and looked. All I heard was the distant sounds of sirens and honking cars. The rain poured harder. The peace and quiet was disturbed within moments of me sitting back down. The automatic door started again, opening and closing, slamming shut, and letting in more rain as they did. But this time, I heard gentle footsteps make their way towards me, tapping closer and closer.
The
Someone
slash
slowly
sling and
emerged from the
slasher.
darkness between the entrance and front desk. A woman with drenched black hair approached, wearing a dark brown raincoat and a pair of boots that were too large for her toothpick legs. Her face was inundated with
Well, you gotta
wrinkles
try her
and
like that, bro.
her black
Them
eyeshadow
toothpick
smudged.
legs, dog.
Despite the heavy rain outside, she didn't seem to have bothered wearing her hoodie. Hello,
Excuse me.
how can I help you, ma'am? She didn't respond. She looked around, scanning and observing an unimpressive hospital. Is there something I can help you with? Still nothing. We engaged in a brief stare down, which she won. I looked down and pretended to gather important paperwork. Are you here to visit someone? Then finally, she responded, without talking. She simply nodded and then took a few steps forward, her hands hanging down her side. Her posture was unnatural, almost uncomfortable. Okay, for now I need you to sign here, then you'll have to wait a few hours for visiting time to begin, I said, pushing forward a sheet of paper and a pen. She raised her arm to sign and then abruptly stopped. She seemed startled by something on the desk. She looked at me,
That's
tilted
fine
her
print.
head and, with a smile that was as wide as her eyes, said, "Would you please move that for me?" I was confused at first, and then she pointed at it with her index finger, as drops of rainwater tapped against my desk while her
Don't
arm
do it,
hovered
Brody.
over it. I took the little crucifix we had at the front desk and put it in a drawer.
Stupid.
The woman proceeded as if she was going to finally sign the paper and then stop before writing anything. She dropped the pen on the ground and stood there again, staring at me. She asked me a question. "Do you reject the Trinity?" "I'm sorry," I replied.
The
For a few
fuck?
more uncomfortable moments, the woman stood there like an ancient statue. I had no idea what she meant by the question. "Ma'am, who exactly are you here to see? Family? Friend? What's your relationship with the patient?" Before I could finish talking midway through my question, the woman turned around and walked out the door, still smiling and her eyes as wide as I'd ever seen on a person. I went back to work and tried to move on, but her creepy mannerisms
She
were
getting
trapped
me
in my
creeped
mind
out,
throughout
bro.
the night. At around 4 a.m. I spotted one of the children in our hospital walking down the hall. "Nina, is that you?" I called out. All the kids in the hospital knew me. I was proudly considered one of the cooler employees. I let them break the rules. I brought them snacks upstairs and even told them scary stories, despite their predictable regret later on. The nurses would get angry with me every time I held one of my scary story nights. They always had a bunch of bed sheets to change the next morning. I only did these things for the kids when I wasn't busy, when it was a quiet night, and this was one of those uneventful nights, which of course was a good thing. Anyway, it was very odd to see Nina awake at that time, walking down those shadowy halls. She was absolutely terrified of the dark, and yet there she was. "Nina, is that you?" I squinted my eyes as I walked towards her.
Sorry, Matt.
She began.
I don't want to be there anymore.
She had dragged her blue blanket along with her, which was her way of gesturing to us that she wanted to move to another room. "You other kids bothering you again?" I asked. I took hold of her hand and began walking her back to the elevator.
Matt, please, don't make me go back up there. I don't like the new nurse.
I stopped walking. "What?" I said, kneeling to Nina's level.
She keeps asking us the same question over and over. I said no so many times. I keep telling her no, but everyone else kept laughing with her and saying yes to her. Please, I don't want to go back up.
Nina's words immediately played flashbacks inside
you
my
better go
tired,
upstairs.
overworked mind. Something about a strange woman going around and asking even stranger questions. I didn't pay enough attention to that broadcast to notice the woman, but even if I had, I thought she had left the hospital. I ditched the elevator and ran up a flight of daunting stairs, stomping
protect
against
those
each step
kids.
with all the force I could muster. I probably woke up all those sleeping employees. I was so loud. I opened the door to the children's room and couldn't believe my eyes. I checked each room, each one on each floor. I woke up my co-worker nurse and asked about the children. She couldn't find them either. We looked
shit.
everywhere and put the hospital on lockdown. We set off all possible alarms and other emergency procedures. We didn't find them. All that was left behind were their clothes.
Shit. She ate them. Stop it right there, guys. That is part 3. Part 4 coming soon, guys. Just give me a couple of minutes. Low-key, I'm kind of liking these scary stories and everything, so let me know how you guys feel about it. That being said,